All right, welcome everyone to our class about adrenal stress. Things that we can do, what's going on, what's happening with it. There's a whole lot of information, so I spent the last little bit trying to go over, okay, what should we talk about, what should we leave out, and all those types of things, but we could probably have a 3-hour class on this. I'm gonna try to keep it to 20-30 minutes and answer any questions from there, okay? First off, does anybody not understand adrenal stress? Okay, let's talk about.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just to in general, what's the difference between stress and adrenal stress?
Oh, good question. Stress is what happens to us. Adrenals are your glands that sit on top of the kidneys. They're called adrenals. Renal is your kidney, so they sit on top of your kidneys. Okay, but they are your stress glands. They respond, they secrete cortisol, which is your stress hormone and helps you deal with stress. They do a whole bunch of other things, which we're going to talk about too. So the adrenal stress disorder is just, someone called it one time adrenal stress syndrome, but that wasn't a good abbreviation, so we've changed it to disorder. Okay.
So basically it's the adrenal stress system not working the way it's supposed to.
Yes, or having trouble with that, which affects a whole bunch of things, which we'll kind of talk about, okay? So what are some of the causes, what are some of the symptoms when we come under stress? What things can happen, specifically when the adrenals come under stress and can't handle it? First off, let's back up. Has anybody been told that their adrenals are stressed and been working on it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and have you been working on it?
Apparently not, because I'm here.
Okay. How long ago?
That was a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I was just given a supplement, but I wouldn't
Just given a
say it
supplement.
did anything long term.
Okay. All right, and so it sounds like you're probably not taking it still.
Yeah.
Okay. Ellen, my assistant, was just telling me about a patient that we worked on today, and she was like, she mentioned about her class tonight. She's like, oh. She's like, well, come to the class. She goes, I don't care about the class, just sign me up to do it, but apparently she's been working with adrenals for years. And, Ellen told her, you can bring in the supplements that you've been on, that they put you on, and do things, and we can test to see if they're working. My comment to her was, well, they're probably not if she's been on it for years. And so the things that I work with, one is, I don't think when we're dealing with something like this, it's not something that we should have to be on for the rest of our life. Unless you have damaged things so much that we can't, it's not going to function right. We have to do it. I haven't met anyone like that. Okay. Now some people take a long time. You got to get wood.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you raised your hand as well.
Yes, I was. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
So just think of it just stress. And we handle a lot of our stress through the adrenal glands. That's the system that gets taxed. But when the adrenal glands gets taxed, it affects everything. And that's when we talk about this pathway, we're going to talk about that and see, oh my gosh, this may be why this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. And also, if I remember, we will talk about things to be careful of when you're being treated for it. You got to make sure that someone's just not, it's very common out there just to throw a supplement at it. And that's not the answer, and sometimes it could actually make it worse. Okay, any other questions? Okay. What are some of those symptoms?
Is it crying?
Okay, that can be. Yeah, mood, things like that. Headaches, good. Tired.
Anxious.
What's that?
Feeling anxious.
Feeling anxious, right, okay. Good. Anything else?
Exhaustion. No energy.
No energy, especially when?
Like middle of the day.
Especially middle of the day, but anytime. Okay, and hopefully we'll kind of talk about that cycle, okay, because there's a cycle that cortisol, or stress hormone, doesn't just come out when there's stress, it's flowing through us all the time. But sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, and many times when we have a big problem with adrenal stress disorder, that can be flipped on its head, it could be just going the wrong way, and that's one reason why we start to feel those things, okay? So we've got fatigue, we've got emotional things, we've got crying, anxiety, depression, all those types of things. We've got can't lose weight, and probably more of a problem that many of us would rather have, can't gain weight. It can be either one. We could even have SI. Anyone ever know what the SI is? Pelvis comes into your sacrum, sacroiliac joint. Pain there, pain in the knee, foot pain, can be problems with adrenal stress, okay? One reason that is like, how the heck does that manage? Well, in the body, every muscle is associated with certain organs, certain systems, okay? There are 5 muscles that are related to the adrenal glands, whether it's through the acupuncture points or some other reflex points. They're related to the same circuit that the adrenals are on. And all 5 of them surround the knee. And one of them, three of them affect the foot and the knee. And another one of them affects the actual hip itself too.
Is it one near, like right or left, or is it both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have the same muscles on both sides.
But it could it lean one side
Yes,
or another?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, yeah. Blood sugar problems. Has anybody ever, or do they have, or know someone that has trouble when they're laying down or sitting, they go to get up and they get dizzy? Okay, it's called Ragland's sign. It's a medical sign that, we can actually take your blood pressure, have you sit, take your blood pressure, have you lay down, take your blood pressure, and then have you stand up and take your blood pressure right away. Things should happen. What should happen? So if anybody have their own blood pressure cuff at home?
I do, I don't use it.
Okay, so you can test yourself.
Okay.
So have a seat, take the blood pressure, write down, or have someone help you, they write it down. Is it like an automatic one, you just push a button, that's good. Okay, so you just take your blood pressure while you're sitting. And then lay down, take it again, record the number, record it on each level, and then what you want to do is, you don't want to stand up and then push the button, but push the button to start going and stand up, and then record that number. Here's what should happen. Your top number, your systolic number, let's just say you're perfect, what textbook, textbooks are changing now, 120/80. That 120 number should raise by 4 to 10 points, okay? If we have this and it starts to become severe, many times we'll see that not raise at all or it drops. And so what the heck does that mean? We have in our legs, our heart pumps blood out through the arteries. The veins return it back to the heart, right? There's no set pumping system other than our muscles and movement to get that blood flow back. Gravity is pulling blood down, and so every 3/4 of an inch, half an inch, 2/3 of an inch, somewhere in that range, you have one-way valves in your veins. And that's to stop from gravity pulling the blood and keeping it down to your feet. Well, if that was the case, we wouldn't be able to walk, right? So it stops it, and then as we move, it pumps it back to the heart. We have no one-way valves up here or into the brain. So what should happen is, as I'm laying down and I go to get up, gravity starts to pull that blood down, my adrenal glands should kick in, okay, and raise, essentially simplified, raise the blood pressure so that I don't pass out, to keep blood up here. Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna ask stupid questions. So are you saying that it's the adrenal glands that typically are the ones that keep that blood pressure going?
If the adrenal glands are not functioning right, they are a part of that system.
Okay.
And so if you show this sign where it doesn't raise, that systolic number doesn't raise 4 to 10 points, you can start to say that's a medical test to say we start to think adrenal stress.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay. So many times it'll even drop, okay? And your system can recover fairly quickly. That's why you go to get up, you're like, go dizzy, wait a second, and then go. That's why I want you to hit the blood pressure and then stand up. So it's going as you stand up. If I was to take it, I would pump it up, and then I would say stand up, and then I would take it right away. Not stand up, pump it up, and then take it, because you might reset by then, okay? PMS symptoms, menopause symptoms. Menopause should be no big deal. I'm not saying that because I'm a guy, okay? It should be just a normal transition in life. you shouldn't have all those symptoms, hot flashes, mood swings, irritability, and all those types of things. That's not normal. That tells us the system is not functioning properly. Now, I'm gonna oversimplify things, okay? You ladies have ovaries, and they secrete and they make sex hormones, estrogens and things like that, right? As you start to go through menopause, essentially the ovaries are starting to dry up. They're not gonna produce the hormones, but your adrenal glands produce those same hormones to a lesser degree. They should produce it enough to help you function just fine, because you don't need as much. But when they are taxed and you're going through ASD, they can't do it. And so things start fluctuating and it goes all crazy and haywire, hence the symptoms. Okay, does that make sense a little bit? Okay, it should be a normal transition. Everything's just fine. Well, if you've heard your friends or anything, menopause was no big deal. That's great. Their adrenal glands were probably functioning pretty well. Okay, but in today's society, I would probably say if I took 100 people, at least 80% of them would show problems in this system. Just because of today's society, our diet, our lifestyle, everything's fast and furious and let's go, go, go. And we don't recover as well, okay? Even respiratory, asthma, emphysema, things like that can be related to this, okay? And many of these things that we've talked about, these symptoms, it's not just to this. There's many things that can be part of the puzzle, okay? But this is a big one. And I find that or thyroid problems, so many people I talk to is on some type of thyroid, things like that. What I have found in my 20 plus years of practice, thyroid generally is secondary to the adrenals. If we help the adrenal glands function properly, the thyroid many times can balance itself, or at least we don't need to work with it as much after that. But if we work with the thyroid, but the adrenal glands are sitting over here still having a problem, we're always gonna have a problem with the thyroid. They're like a teeter-totter and they work together.
And you can balance that out.
Yes, we can work with your body to balance it out.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I'm not a magician. That'd be cool.
I guess you could help balance.
Yes, and that's what we're gonna talk about tonight, okay? Any questions about that, signs, symptoms, things like that? Okay, now we're gonna go through a little bit of, I don't know, some of you might be bored with this, but we're gonna go through it anyways. We wanna talk about causes, okay? And so there's categories. We got 4 categories of stress. And these are strong. If I pass out, it's, okay. So categories of stress. We've got physical. That's annoying. We've got chemical. We've got emotional. And we've got thermal. And we've got thermal. Okay? What are some physical stresses? Let's just name some.
Exercise.
Exercise. Okay? So, okay? What else?
Would an injury count?
Injuries. Okay, yeah. It's a lot stressful if you've blown a meniscus and you can't walk, not just stress emotionally, but physically, right? And what happens if we have an injury on one body? For those of you that have done muscle work in here, what happens if a muscle shuts down, doesn't work, what happens to the other muscles? What do? They try to pick up the slack and they compensate and they overwork. So eventually you get a domino effect and more muscles shut down and you don't function the way you should. Okay? What else?
Pain.
Pain. Okay, good. How about sleep? What happens if you don't sleep? What can you not do if you're not getting proper? What happens when we sleep? We recover, we repair. If we don't do that, it's a big stress on our body, right? Anything else that you can think of?
Breathing,
Breathing, yeah, that's a good one.
just not,
Lack of proper breathing.
yeah, that
right?
was probably the better way to put it.
Improper. I'm gonna just put breath. Okay, good. How should we breathe?
Oh, easy.
One, we gotta close our mouth. We should close our mouth and breathe through our nose. Our nose is designed to breathe, our mouth is not. Okay? If you breathe through your mouth, you're gonna die sooner. There's actually books out there. I actually was listening to a podcast on the way here about the diaphragm, and the main thing they were talking about is breathing through your nose. Okay? And then Dr. Christian was going like, he's on this big kick about breathing properly and how our back, 50 years ago, rarely did someone have braces, and now everybody gets braces. Back 50, 60 years ago, rarely did you have your wisdom teeth out. Now everybody has to get them out at 19, whatever that is, okay? And the reason being is we don't breathe enough through our nose, so our faces become narrower and our sinus passages become narrower, and then we have trouble breathing and things like that. It's from this book called Breathe. Okay, all right, I think that's enough. Chemical. Where do we get chemical stress?
Drugs. I mean, not bad ones.
All
Drugs are bad.
meds, drugs,
Yeah, meds and drugs.
okay?
Food,
So let's just put diet,
Pesticides.
chemicals, right? I'll put chems. What else?
The air we breathe, I guess.
Okay. So pollution. Sorry for my writing. Pollution. How about emotional?
Everybody around us.
Family, kids.
People that drive really bad.
that one's gonna be a very long list.
That's true.
Just with everyone.
All right, so let's put some things, okay? Anxiety, fear, worry. There. And that list could just keep going on, right? What the heck is thermal?
It's
How's-
heat and cold exposure.
Exactly, okay? Hot, cold, okay? If we get too hot, that's gonna be a huge stressor. If we get too cold, that's gonna be a huge stressor. Changing in those temperatures is a big stress too. Let's not go into there. Any questions on this? Okay. Anybody need time? I'm gonna erase it. Okay, good. So let's also talk about adaptation from that, okay? So we're gonna talk about adaptation, okay? A scientist by the name of Hans Selye, I think this was in the 1920s or so. Anyways, he wasn't a doctor yet, but he was going through graduate school, and he was assigned to this lab, and they were studying like ovaries and things like that. They would go and get these ovaries from these slaughtered cows, anyways. And they would do experiments and they'd do things on it. And they all did it, and there was these, there was like 13 of them or something, and he's the low man on the totem pole, so he had to do all the dirty work. But they also were studying this, so they had to dissect it and do things. And they found that his numbers were higher. He showed he was able to extract more stress chemicals from the ones he dissected. And he was all excited. I'm number one, I'm cool. Until he started to look at the whole class. And guess what happened? The instructor, the highest man, number one guy on the totem pole, he had the worst numbers in the thought or the lowest numbers. And him and everybody, and it kind of could be correlated to the one with the next most experience was just below, and the one with the next most experience, and he was down at the bottom. Then he realized it was backwards. He was the worst at it. And so as he dissected and did things, he caused more stress, and that's why it created that. Anyways, he's like the father of the stress system, and it's called G.A.S. General Adaptation Syndrome. Okay, and he's like the big guy that started to study stress. So he just got really into it because he stunk at doing this. And so he was able to study how stress and how it affects the body. Now, there's 3 stages. Well, how do we want to do this? All right, so let's do a graph. Okay, there's 3 stages in this. There's the alarm stage, there's resistance, and then there's exhaustion. Okay, exhaustion stage. Okay. The alarm stage, when something happens and our adrenal glands start to secrete necessary hormones to help us deal with that, they can actually start to become depleted. And so what will happen is we will dip down a little bit, okay, in the function of the adrenal glands, because it's working so hard, and so its function starts to drop. But the adrenal glands are amazing. Our body's amazing, period. But we have 2 adrenal glands, right? They sit on top of each kidney, and they're like a acorn, a walnut type size, okay? But they have the ability to, if you were to get rid of or cut out an adrenal gland, that other adrenal gland has the ability to grow to twice its size and take on the work of both adrenal glands. Okay, it's really cool. But the problem is you don't just have to have your adrenal gland removed, you could just be under excessive stress. So what happens, your adrenal gland can start to actually grow in size to keep up with the load, and after this alarm stage, you start to come up, okay? And you go up. Then, if that stress continues on, you go into what's called the resistance stage. And a lot of us are in this stage because of society. Computers, electronics, everything we do, driving on the freeway, all those types of things, okay? And then after a while, your adrenal glands can't keep up at all, and you go down into the exhaustion stage. When you get into the exhaustion stage, you're dying. And your system's starting to shut down everywhere. So most people are here. So this is the 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now I'll let you in on a secret. That's a simple graph. But what actually can happen, what actually does happen, is when we're in this, it's not just a straight line. There's times where we could show hyperadrenal, increased function, and sometimes when it goes lower. And you actually do this. The problem is you're way up here when we should be doing this down here. Okay, so you could still create that rhythm when there's times of excess stress, but our new normal is just different, and it's just higher function, more stressful function, not necessarily higher function in a good way. Does that make sense? Okay, and you can actually do hormone saliva testing to find out where you are on this graph. I don't recommend blood testing to tell you this. Here's the difference, and again, I try to simplify it so that we're not getting into all this biochemistry and things like that. you have, and we'll talk about this a little bit. If you take a blood test, it's going to show your hormone levels, total hormone levels, for certain ones that we'll talk about. Hormones, but you have, it's the total level is not the important part, because most of that is bound to protein, and once it's bound, it's not being used, it's already being used, right? You can't use it for other things like the stress response. If you do hormone saliva testing, the saliva filters out the ones that are done and keeps the free ones that are able to be used by the body. So when those stressors, the free hormones are the ones that are the important ones. That tells you how you could adapt, how you could respond to the stressful situation. So hormone saliva testing will tell you that. Will give you a better picture of where your adrenal glands, your hormones are, than just blood test. Does that make sense? Okay, but a blood test is pretty darn easy. But then so is saliva testing. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. Let's talk, we've talked a little bit about the physiology. Okay? I should have planned better with this board. All right, you have what's called a triad of chronic stress. Okay? That is number one. You know what? Change. All right, you got one. The adrenal, what's called the cortex. Think of it as the adrenal glands have two portions, a medulla and a cortex. Cortex is the outside portion. The cortex is how I said the adrenal glands have the ability to grow twice its size. That's the cortex that does it. The medulla produces certain things and certain hormones. The cortex does different parts, okay? So this enlarges. Okay? Number two, thymus, lymphatics, decrease. What does your thymus do? Does anyone know? Your immune system. It's part of your immune system. Okay. It's called atrophy. So the thymus atrophies. If a muscle atrophies, it gets smaller. Thymus gets smaller. Your lymphatic system gets smaller, and so it can't function. What do the lymphatics do? Come on, when we're working with the muscles and we tell you, you guys don't listen. I'm just teasing. Lymphatic system, let's simplify it, garbage system. Okay, think about it. Blood brings, when we're talking about muscles, blood brings nutrients and oxygen into the muscle, into the system, and lymphatic takes out the garbage. Again, we're oversimplifying it, but just think of it that way. Okay, the garbage system. What happens if we don't take out the garbage? It fills up, toxic overload, increasing more stress. So this is like a vicious cycle. And then, what do you, stomach and duodenal ulcers. Okay? Because it changes in gut motility, the immune system through there, and the microbiome, among other things. Leaky gut, things like that. Okay? So these are the three things that happen when we're under chronic stress. Okay? They're natural, normal, but if we recover, they're okay. Now, any questions on that? Okay, now look at your pathways. I'm going to see, I'm not drawing out all that you guys have on your sheet, but you have pregnenolone. okay? This is truly considered a mother hormone, but what's called in health and medical and everything, the DHEA, which we'll come to, is a mother hormone, but this produces DHEA. So here's pathways. You guys have the more detailed one. What we come down to, and this makes aldosterone, okay, mineralocorticoid. In simple terms, this helps to regulate sodium and potassium in and out of the cell and the blood, blood pressure, things like that, okay? Then you have cortisol. And what is cortisol?
Your stress hormone.
Stress hormone, right? What does cortisol do? It helps with stress. It helps regulate blood sugar, things like that, okay? It also has a huge impact on high amounts of cortisol for a long period of time suppresses your immune system, okay? And then DHEA. What does DHEA do? This goes down to, or what are sex hormones? Testosterone, estrogens, all those types of things. Okay, so this breaks down and comes into sex hormones. Okay, now on there, you guys have a little cheat sheet in there. You could write this in. You see how there's asterisks. Okay, do you see that under pregnenolone? So there's one right here, and there's one. It's technically right here. It's going to this part. There's a asterisk here, asterisk here. These pathways, actually, this is confusing it, but this pathway, it'll steal over to here and not go down, okay? You can see it better on your guys's than what I drew. Does that make sense? Okay, so under chronic stressful conditions, if you follow those asterisks, that's where the primary pathway is. Why? Because that pathway goes down to cortisol. Your body's like, I need cortisol now, the other things need to decrease. So under that, you don't get the aldosterone as well. So what's that gonna affect?
Blood pressure.
So blood pressure, sodium, potassium, all that kind of stuff. Imagine if that affects the heart, not very good. Okay, if you have a decrease in that. We increase cortisol, which we need it. What happens to DHEA? It's not being converted to DHEA. So we have less hormones, sexual hormones. Okay, does everyone follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Now you'll also notice there are, oh sorry.
No, fine, fine.
Do you guys see the other one where there's two asterisks?
Mhm.
Okay, so let's do a different color. Where's this asterisk? Okay, so okay. These asterisks where there's two, I should do a two. Okay, everybody see that? And that's going over towards DHEA. Right there, in all these, there's steps that have to happen. There's nutrients that have to be there to make that step, okay? And all those. Where these are here, high amounts, this is affected by insulin, okay? So, what happens in high amounts of insulin, what does insulin do?
Blood sugar, isn't it?
Blood sugar, yes. Essentially, insulin is the usher, helping you get to your seat with the sugar, right? And so we eat food, we process that, we break that down into sugar, okay? And then the insulin will come and usher it to the cells. To get to the cells, the usher knows the secret code. It knocks on the door, the cell opens up, sugar goes in. The cell now has food and energy to work. The problem is how much insulin do we get, do we produce now with our diet and our lifestyle? We secrete what's on rampant right now.
Diabetes.
Prediabetes, diabetes, right? That's an insulin problem. So when insulin is high, it blocks this. So anything you do to raise your insulin levels, you are going to slow down your DHEA. Now guess what happens? The higher our DHEA is, the longer we live, the younger we stay. Now that doesn't mean go out and get you some DHEA and start taking it. No, that's not it. We want our body to process it. As we age, that naturally decreases how much we produce. It's just how it is. But the slower that degrades, the longer we live, the healthier we stay. Okay? But high amounts of insulin block it. Which means there's more to come down to here. Okay? Now, there is, okay, we should put, all right, so DHA gets broken down into a few steps. Like I said, you guys have it on there, into sex hormones. Now we've got, running out of color. Oh, we can use black. Now you see where the 3 asterisks is. Okay. This is stimulated by insulin. So we'll just put stimulated. Stimulated by insulin. Sounds like a good thing, right? But let's look at it. High insulin is blocking it. So what's that mean? We're going to have less DHEA. Does that make sense? Now, if insulin is also increasing this, the transfer of DHEA down to sex hormones, if we don't have much of this, and it's already increasing more than maybe we need, we're going to run out of it even more. Does that make sense? It's like a double-edged sword. So it blocks here, so we're not producing it, we're not replacing it, we're just using it up. And guess what that starts to lead to? Remember those symptoms we talked about? All those types of things. Lower sex hormones, PMS, menopause, those types of things. And yes, I know I'm oversimplifying things, but I just want to get a picture of this. There's many factors into that. Okay? And remember, when we have high amounts of cortisol, the higher the cortisol, decrease immune system. So, now here's where we can get into trouble. If someone doesn't know what they're doing to help you with your adrenal glands, they can drive you into the ground. Here's the reason. I was just talking to someone yesterday, the day before. She does Krav Maga. She teaches it. She beats people up with it. She comes with the black guys. It's pretty cool. I can't remember why we got on the subject. She couldn't make the class, but she signed up. She's like, okay, test me for this. Because talking with her, and it reminded me of this, that's why I'm bringing it up now, is all these things happened, and then she started getting sick. She'd be like, I've been sick this year 8 times. And it makes perfect sense to me, but now I have to show her why. Increased cortisol, her cycles and everything is just crazy. Anxiety is through the roof. Depression comes and goes. All these things, all those symptoms she's having, and she's getting sick. Because someone tried to help her and give her adrenal supplements. More than likely, I don't know this because I haven't tested her yet, but we're gonna find out. more than likely, by supporting the adrenal glands, you can start to increase the amount of cortisol you have available. Increased cortisol, decreased immune system, get sick often, and it's not correcting the problem. So you have to be careful with just, oh, let's just take this as an adrenal supplement. Let's take it. You may not need it. Okay? Does that make sense? You got to have the right stuff. Okay? Any questions on that? Does that make sense on your little sheet? Okay? All right. Sorry, I'm going to try to hurry. What do we do about it? What are some things that we can do? I want to not just teach you about this, but I want to give you homework, tools. Okay? If we've got high amounts of stress, what should we do? Kick the kids out.
It's harder to raise adult kids than it is kids.
It is. It is. I long for those days of 3 years old, 5-year-old, 9-year-olds, and you get them in bed at 8. Oh my gosh.
They do what you say.
And not coming home at 2 or 3 and not answering your texts. And then your wife stays up. I can sleep, but she'll stay up, which means I'm kind of up too. And anyways, yeah. Right? We need to take down stress. How many practice some type of stress relief? Okay. What's the
It's the breathing,
attempt
box
it.
breathing,
Good.
other breathing.
awesome? That's great. Are you, let me ask you a question, are you box breathing through your nose?
Yes.
Good. Make sure your mouth is closed.
Yes.
Has anyone heard of hostage tape? I think this is like the greatest name in the world. It's tape that you put over your mouth, and they call it hostage tape or play on words, you know? And that way when you go to sleep, to make sure you're not breathing through your mouth, you breathe through your nose. It's kind of cool. I'm like, that is awesome. Anyways. So anyone else willing to share, what do you do for stress relief?
Walking.
Walking? Okay, it's proper exercise. Right? Good. Good.
Eat a balanced diet.
Our diet, right? Good. Good. Anything else?
Sleeping.
Sleeping. Take a nap. I love naps.
Meditation.
Meditation. Good. So even if you, some simple things you can do. You can do all these things that we're talking about. But sometimes eating healthy all the time is freaking hard. Except for Josh Christensen. Okay? He doesn't eat perfect, but he does freaking well.
I
Okay?
don't know who that is.
Really well.
That's the other doctor in the
Oh,
office.
okay.
They are cousins, so they know.
Oh,
That's
Okay.
why
good to
I'm
know.
So they're good. No, he's great. But he's very good, and I commend him. But I got a Frosty in this. That's gonna be so tasty. Anyways, I think that helps with my emotional balance too. So it's kind of, it's kind of okay. Breathe through your nose. Think about it. Okay? Without getting too deep into it, how many times when you're getting stressed, okay, just take a deep breath in and out. One, if you're gonna do that, do it through your nose, close your mouth, in and out. But a better idea, don't do that at all. You actually make things worse. Okay? And we're not gonna get into physiology or into anything like that way. What I want you to do instead of taking this deep breath in and out, slow your breathing down and breathe through your nose. The less you breathe, sounds counterintuitive, the less you breathe, the longer you live. The more balanced your hormones are, the lower their stress is, and the better you're able to handle stress and recover. We are designed for that tiger to run after us, we get away and recover. The problem is the tiger never stops chasing us most times in today's society. We got kids, we've got spouse, we got financial, we got work, we got all that, we got lack of sleep. Okay? Slow down, breathe through your nose, breathe less.
so the breathe through your, take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, that's not a good thing.
Not too deep, just, now more like, okay, slow it down, but not a, that can actually drive it further and make it worse in the long run.
Okay, good to know.
Slow it down.
Okay.
Just, you should, there's a saying, breathe like a ninja. If a ninja's in this room, we don't know, because he's a ninja. You want your breath to be, you breathe like a ninja. You don't know when you're breathing, and no one can tell when you're breathing.
I can't do that. My mind noise when I breathe.
But it takes practice, right? If you yawn a lot, if you sigh a lot, we need to work on our breathing. I need to do it, for sure. So it's not me telling you, hey, this is what I do. These are things that I'm working on, okay? Yes?
2 questions. What would be the average breaths per minute that you'd recommend? Saying
About 5 to 6.
5 to 6. Okay. And then.
So it's like breathe in for 5, breathe out for about 5.5 or so.
And that's just a resting, right? Because exercise, you're gonna do
Yes.
different,
Oh yeah.
right?
That's gonna be different. But when you exercise, you need to train yourself to keep your mouth shut.
So that was my next question. So, because for me, like when I'm running, I have the hardest time because it's like I feel like I'm so blocked in the sinuses that I
Right.
can't do
But
that.
this is, it's like a
Yeah.
muscle. You've got to train it.
Yeah. So that's I guess
Exactly.
my question's on
Because I'll tell you what, I can almost guarantee, I vision in my head, I've not used that ostrich tape, but I want to. I know I'm gonna put it on and be like, I can't breathe. Get it off, you know? But I'm gonna have to train myself. And right now we're working on it to, you know, when I'm working with patients, sometimes I'm looking, well, they are laying there with their mouth open. They're not breathing through their nose, most likely, if their mouth is open. Or how many times are we like Napoleon Dynamite, just sitting there with the mouth open? Not because we're breathing through our nose, because we're trying to get more oxygen through there, but it actually decreases. Our mouth is not designed to breathe for us. There's no benefit. There are 30 benefits of breathing through your nose, 0 breathing through your mouth. Okay. Anyone heard of heart rate variability? Okay, it's the biggest, what did it say? It's the most powerful predictor of all cause illnesses is your heart rate variability. All right, let's pretend, let's make it simple. We take our heart rate and it's 60 beats per minute. What doesn't happen, it's not like 1001 beat, 1002 beat, 1003 beat, 1004 beat. Doesn't happen that way. It's more like 1000 beat 1, 1000 beat 2. I can't even do it. Anyways, but it's just not right there on the seconds. Sometimes it's a little shorter than a second, sometimes it's a little longer. And the more variable you can do, the more healthier you are. Because your body needs to be able to, your heart needs to be able to respond to its environment.
And you said heart rate variability?
Variability, how much it varies. So it's 60 beats, 70 beat, it's not exactly every beat's the exact time. Does that make sense? It varies. Sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little longer. The better variability you have, the longer you live, the healthier you are. You go through all this. So, anyone heard of heart math? All right, so there's a few techniques that they have. I use some, but one you can do as homework. It's called heart lock-in. I want you to bring attention to your heart, where it is. Just think about it right now. Okay? Now, I want you to breathe through your nose. In 5, out 5. Okay? Now let's go to the next level. While you're breathing in for 5 and out for 5, sounds really weird, but I want you to, breathe through your heart. Just imagine you're breathing through your heart. Sounds weird, but just do that as you're breathing. Now another step forward. Think of a time when you felt love, joy, appreciation, gratitude, anything like that. And then I want you to take that feeling and put it through the heart, like it's coming through your heart as you do your breathing. And I want you to hold that state, not hold your breath, hold that state for 5 to 20 minutes, whatever you can do. 10 seconds is better than no seconds. Okay? There's no excuse. We all have some time. You use it while we're standing in line, whatever, while we're driving. Okay? But you want to feel it in your heart and you want to hold that for 5 to 20 minutes. That will improve your heart rate variability like that. if I ever work on you guys and we go into something like this, I do something that's deeper than this when I'm working with a patient, you will see dramatic changes right away. It's huge. In fact, I have to save that. I can't do it too early or else I lose the ability to help the patient. And it's like, okay, you're helped you. Okay, I can't help you anymore right now because that was so powerful. The heart puts out 2.5 watts of power. It is 40 to 60 times more powerful electrically than your brain. You can have your heart measured from 8 to 10 feet away. They have to be right next to your brain to measure it. Your heart is most powerful. It's also, for you ladies, you have your cycle, okay? If there's multiple women in the same house for a long time, what happens? The cycles sink. That's naturally. If we take a pendulum and we put them together, eventually they will start swinging the same. That's just nature. That's how it works, okay?
Is it because of the electrical currents?
I don't know exactly, but it just tends to. But I will let you know this, your whole body, if your heart's the most powerful, what does everything want to entrain to? The heart. And that's when we realize if we can concentrate on that heart, do the things to strengthen that heart, things are going to entrain to that and they're going to become stronger. And that's one thing that's going to happen with this heart locking technique. Remember, breathe. Think about where your heart is. Breathe in 5, breathe out 5, and breathe through your nose. Think about the joy, the appreciation, the love. Now, when I work with a patient with something like this, I actually test you to find out exactly what appreciation, what a love is. Not what it is, which one to use. Because some are more powerful than others. It's may not what you think. We'll just have you think of it and we'll test you. And it's kind of weird and cool what happens, okay? But you don't have to wait for me to test you. Just think of it. It will help. It may not help the best. It may not be the 100-point one, but it's going to help you. Any questions? Okay. So now the question is, what do I do to help you? Number one, we need to find out if you're having adrenal stress disorder. I have 4 different ways that I test the patient to see if they're falling into this. Okay? Like I said, if 100 people come in, 80+% of them are going to show for it. If you fail any one of those tests, I know we need to do some work. Okay? And just because you failed 2 or 3 or all 4 doesn't mean you're worse off. Don't think that.
Sorry, bye.
Okay? You've never had it reset before, I assume. Okay? So what I do is I test. I put you through and I test those. They're very simple. It takes me a few minutes on the table. Okay? And if you guys want, I will demonstrate it. Number 2, once we find out that there's a problem, we need to know how to help the problem, right? We need to make sure, how do we support this? How do we help it? How do we help the stress to come down? If the adrenals are stressed out, it needs help. What help and how do we help come in? I test you for those things. And then we say, okay, you need to do these things, you need to take these. And then the last step, we find out what the heck is driving this adrenal stress. And we eliminate it. I'm not saying, what, you're gonna take away my chocolate? You're gonna take away, no, I'm not talking about that. Right there on the table, I will reset your body to it. And then we go from there, and then you pass the test. And there may be a couple other things that I do, depending on what your needs. And in the beginning, we'll do exactly what I just said. As you start to pass things, I will go deeper, okay, to work with the problem. I am not one, I want to put you on a supplement or anything for the rest of your life. I do not give you hormones. If I give you a hormone, your body does not have to produce that hormone. I give you the nucleoproteins, the nutrients to help your body do what it knows it needs to do, and then it starts to correct itself. And we test you specifically right there for what you need. Okay? How do we get off of it? Okay. I then have you come back every month, and we just check. We take you through those 4 tests. If you fail any of them, we correct it. We find out what things, there's 5 major stressors to the adrenal glands that I use to test. There's caffeine, the biggest stressor to the adrenal glands there is on the planet. There's histamine, immune reactions, okay? There's insulin coming from the pancreas and blood sugar, stresses the adrenal glands. Norepinephrine, one of the hormones that's secreted out of the adrenal medulla, okay? Think of it as simple terms, of course I just went blank. Anyways, just think of it.
You'll think of it.
Sugar and sugar. Those types of things. I actually test you on those things, and whatever you show for, we reset the body. Okay? And then you just come back each month, we test it. What I'm looking for is you to come in and you pass all 4 tests. You pass those tests, good job. We could either dive into things deeper and we could do other things. That's great. Then I say, okay, I'll see you in a month. Good job. I have you come back in a month, still nothing's changing of what we're doing. You come back in. If you pass then I know we're good. You could come in and pass those tests because it was a good day, you won the lottery, you just had a grandchild born, whatever. And you just happen to test really well. Okay. If you test a second time and you pass them, we know we're done. Now we just need to come off. I cut your dosages or whatever you're taking, we cut whatever you're doing in half. And I have you come back 1 more month and test you, make sure that you pass on the half dose, and I say, okay, whatever you're taking, just finish that out, don't buy any more. And then we're good. But then you gotta practice your homeworks and things that we've worked with as you go for help stress reduction to keep it there. I do not want you to rely on me for the rest of your life. If you do, I'm not doing my job properly. It's job security, but not doing I don't want you to have a Band-Aid. Come and see me because you have an ache and pain or you want to stay healthy, but not that we have to always fix a problem. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions?
If you do give something, like you said, to take in the time being, do you check it with the other medications or supplements you're taking to make sure there's no issues, or is it?
Well, we
safe
could
to
talk
take
about whatever
regardless?
you're taking. Yeah.
Okay.
And some of you, is anyone taking adrenal stuff? Okay. If you are, bring it in. Let's test it. Let's see if it works. If it's working. Okay? Any other questions? Now, if you would like, but I would need a volunteer, and you will be on camera, I can just show you the 4 tests that we do. It's not a big deal.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Come on over.
Okay.
Is there anything I need to know about in your history that you're
Like,
willing to tell me?
I have asthma,
Okay. No.
and I
All
breathe in the night. My husband thinks somebody's breaking
Oh,
into the
you're
house.
gonna lay on your back.
High five.
Okay.
It's terrible.
So I use manual muscle testing as a window into the nervous system and how it's functioning. And then I do what's called receptor-based therapies or treatments or challenges to see how the body responds. Okay, so something simple. Turn your foot in, and I'm gonna try to separate, don't let me. Okay, so this muscle, I'm just gonna call them out, it's gracilis. Bend this knee. I'm gonna pull here, you resist. Good, that's sartorius. Point your toes down. I'm gonna push here, you resist, push in. Good, that's posterior tibialis. Bend here. Keep the foot pointed down. I'm gonna just do a general test. I'm gonna pull here, you resist. That's your gap, hold that. That's your gastric. Now what I want you to do, bring this up, because you're just pushing it into the table, you cheater.
Yes.
I'm gonna pull here, I'm just teasing you. Hold here, hold. Okay, good. She can hold that. There's also, this is not a good test position, but I'm gonna do it. Hold here, I'm gonna pull here, you resist. Wonderful. Those 5 tests are the 5 adrenal related muscles. Okay, so I first just check those. Are any of those a problem? And then I see what would correct them. And that could tell me many times if that's a problem, we start to think, it's not 100%, but we start to think it's a hypo-functioning adrenal gland. It's not able to do its job. Now we're gonna start to test for hyper type stuff, okay? So I want you to touch your belly button for me.
Like this hand?
No, you're good. Will you grab cortisol and smack it?
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so I'm gonna test some things. I'm gonna use some reflex points. Once you take 2 fingers, actually before you do that,
Okay.
elbow straight. I'm gonna, now don't pull the shoulder out, just, there you go. I'm gonna do this, you just stop me, hold. Okay, good, hold there. So an intact muscle, you can hold that strong, right?
Yep.
I want you to take 2 fingers, I want you to touch here. This is a reflex point for the pituitary gland. Pituitary starts to tell your endocrine glands what to do. Hold there, I'm gonna push. Okay, good. So by touching that, she can stay strong. Touch your belly button for me. Good, you're gonna come right. This is a reflex point for the adrenal glands. Hold here, I'm gonna push, you resist. Good, elbow straight, cheater. There you go, hold here. Good. All right, so I wanna make sure that those are clear, that she's not weakening to touching any of those, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to drop some cortisol on your tongue. Is that okay?
Sure.
It's a homeopathic, and so by adding, it's a succession, it adds energy to the,
Catalyzing it?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, take 2 fingers, touch here. Perfect. Elbow straight, hold. Okay, and you're trying? Hold. Okay, that's a problem. And you're trying. Hold.
Hold my hand up.
Hold this. Hold. Okay. Let go of that. Hold. Okay, and you're trying the same right here.
Yeah.
Hold.
Yep.
Good. Touch here. Good. Hold. That is, she just failed that test. Did you feel the difference between when you had
Yes.
touching here and there?
Yes.
So that leads me to think her adrenal glands are, remember this, the pathway and then exhaustion, she's up here somewhere. And now we've got to help it to function. So I know with that test, there's a problem. And that's all I need to know, but there's other tests too, okay? So let's try, hold here, I'm gonna push out, you resist. Good. What happens if I stretch a muscle? What does the muscle want to do if I stretch it? And don't say loosen up.
Contract.
Contract. You stretch a muscle naturally, it wants to contract, okay? So relax there, I'm gonna stretch, hold there, I'm gonna push, you resist. Okay, that should not happen. That muscle should strengthen. Now, there could be a problem in the fascia of her muscle, so, wait a minute, we need to make sure we get this back. And it only weakens for a short time, so she resets, hold. Okay, so hers is still not going. Hold here just for sake. Good. Hold. Okay, so if I stretch any joint in the body and any muscle will weaken, not just the joint I stretched, that's an adrenal issue. So that's failed test number 2. Bend this knee. Hold here. Okay, good. I'm gonna pinch you, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. This is just
Maybe.
causing, hold here. Okay, she passed that one. If I induce pain, it's a stressor to the adrenal glands that should not weaken you, should be able to handle it, and she did. But if you fail that, that's another test. So those are the 4 tests that I take you through. If you fail any of those, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you fail any of those, we know we have to work to some degree this. Okay. Any other questions? So now, the same type of thing. How do I find out what the heck we're using? Well, I will actually put nutrition on your tongue or something to your body that can help it, and see if while tasting that nutrient or whatever, you pass those tests. Some things I'll put on, but nope, that doesn't help. And I know the things that help the adrenal glands. I know what nutrients it needs to function. I know how to rebuild it. The question is, what do you need though? I actually put it on your tongue, you taste it, that sends it through the system, so your brain, you start secreting the proper enzymes and everything to process that, and we test it, and you actually see a change in the test. There's some things I'll put on your tongue, nope, that didn't help. That was no good. Oh, this one helps. And then we find what are those 5. Then at the end, once we find what's gonna help you, boom, we know that, we make a note of that, and then we go through the 5 stressors: caffeine, insulin, norepinephrine, sugar, histamine. Histamine is one of the second most problematic things for the adrenal glands. We test those. Whichever you have a problem with, we reset your body really quick to it, neurologically. And then you go on your way. People see really quick results. I used to do this a lot, and then I can't remember. One patient was just talking, I just said, I think you need to do this. So we did it, and now it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, more people, and I'm getting many patients saying, why did I not know you did this? Why did I not know about this? And I'm like, okay, I will think about doing a class. Okay, I will think about doing a class. I'm finally doing the class. Okay, so I apologize. But it's something that's really cool, and you could do this for anything in the body. But we just have to know what's going on and how to correct it. But I also want to give you tools to do at home, so you don't have to stay on anything for the rest of your life. Other than a few nutrients, just because our food sucks no matter how well you eat. We need extra nutrition. Any last questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if that stopped it or not. Let's see. I hope it was recording. And it still is.